Hello and welcome to Let's Review. Kickstarted games have always been something of a dicey proposition. We've talked about them a bit in the past, but they don't always work out. Recently, the internet has been thoroughly abuzz with the news that Mighty Number 9 is actually mightily disappointing. And while that's certainly the case sometimes, it has to pay off occasionally, otherwise people wouldn't keep backing things. Wasteland 2 is an example of something that was indeed kickstarted, and for the most part, a lot of people seemed very happy with it. It was created to be a sequel to the game that originally inspired Fallout, so that should give you an indication of just how old the original game is. So does its sequel hold up in this modern world? Well, to answer that, we start as we always do, with the gameplay. Wasteland 2 is a good old-fashioned top-down RPG with a turn-based combat system. This is the standard gameplay screen of Wasteland 2. Don't mind that weird staticky sound in the background, that's just the rain. So, before I actually show you into combat, I just want to show you the inventory system. So everybody carries a primary and a secondary weapon, which you can swap between immediately in combat, and they've got their stuff over here. The amount of things they can carry are based on their strength skill, and I believe there's also a perk that increases your maximum carry weight. So if you compare my party leader, whose primary function is as he's my primary speaker, really. If he's got lots of perks in Smartass, Hardass, and Kissass, which are all various dialogue skills, and he's also pretty good with assault rifles, and he has a little bit of blunt weapon skill as a backup. And you can see here he's got more points in charisma than anything else. His carry weight is limited to 69. If I compare that to Lyris here, who is my primary melee fighter, so she has the best armor I've got. She's also got this hatchet weapon, which is a bladed weapon that does lots of damage at close range. Small handgun as a backup weapon, and she's got significant strength and speed, and most of her points are in bladed weapons and the brute force skill. Oh, and if I go to the inventory, she has 149 pounds of carry weight, so she does most of the heavy lifting for my squad. I've also got Emily here, who uses a shotgun, and Tara here, who is my primary skill user and uses energy weapons, and I've got her with pipe bombs as her secondary, and Rose. Rose is actually a companion you can pick up in the game rather than being one you create yourself. These four are all custom made. So if I look here, you'll notice that Tara has an awful lot of skills, so lockpicking, mechanical repair, safe cracking, demolitions, and she's got a little bit of computer science skill, which I stopped leveling up after I acquired Rose because her computer science skill was very high. I'll actually take this opportunity to demonstrate how you level up, so commit some points there, and she's now got rank 10 in alarm disarming as well. If I wanted to get a new skill, I would have to spend some points, but it takes 2 skill points to get a new skill, so can't demonstrate that. You've also got your perks, which you pick up every few levels. So, for example, she has Cyber Scrounger. So when she uses her computer science skill, she has a chance to gain bonus energy cells from it. Now, since she's actually equipped with a pistol, rather than an energy weapon, as soon as she gets those energy cells, I give them to Tara, who's got a pretty good weapon there. And that's kind of it for your character management stuff. There is genuinely a lot of customization you can give here, and you are going to want a well-balanced squad. So I've basically got leader and assault rifles, scrappy close-in brawler, medic with shotgun abilities. Actually, I can show you how to get a perk here, because I appear to have an extra perk going skill. And I'm going to get her the... Let's go with the healthy perk, which is good old-fashioned boost to health. You can never go wrong with that kind of perk. So she's my medic, and I might as well put some more points into field medic with her shotgun abilities. General purpose tech specialist, and again, this is one I picked up in the game, so I didn't design her from the ground up, but it's a reasonably well balanced squad. You can theoretically have up to 7 people, but I've only found this one person who's actually willing to join me. So, you move around the world by just right-clicking on things. You can move the camera around with good old WASD. And there should be some enemies somewhere around here for us to shoot at, so I can demonstrate the combat system. In fact, there they are. If you spot the enemy before they officially spot you, it's a good idea to crouch And wait for opportunity, and you can left click to effectively begin the encounter by taking the first shot yourself. So, we now have my assault rifle guy, who is my squad leader, in this position here, and he's the first one to move. The next up to move will be that guy, then this guy who... nope, that's that one over there, so I'm not sure what that... there he is. Over there. So, we don't have too many enemies to deal with in this example, and we've got some fairly powerful weapons at this point. So I'm just going to target him, 80% chance to hit, and he's gone. Now he's got 2 action points remaining, but there's very little he can do with those 2 action points. He could move a bit, but there's not terribly much point. So instead, I'm simply going to end his turn, and those 2 action points will tick over onto his next turn. So there are some characters who it definitely does help to save up your action points and use them in one moment. Rose there lost control, which basically meant I don't have any control over what she does. She acts of her own free will. When the game does it, they usually end up doing something kind of stupid. So, there we have Tara Lake, who is our tech specialist and who also has energy weapons. Now it costs 4 AP to fire her gun, so I could fire it twice. But instead what I'm going to do is move her into this piece of cover, which is good, because that means she's better defended and she still gets the accuracy bonus from crouching. That guy is now out of range, so I'm going to target this guy. Now that didn't actually do terribly much damage, because energy weapons are more effective against enemies that are conductive. So that means certain enemies, because of their type of armor, or robot enemies, are conductive. And in the case of this weapon, I believe it does 50% damage to non-conductive targets, but 250% damage to conductive targets. So against creatures like this, Tara is not terribly useful. Against robots, she mows through them like they're made of jam, which is quite handy. If you want, you can also use a precision strike, and I'll demonstrate that in a second. Now, Lyris here is my primary melee person. So she's got just enough sprint distance to run to there and hit that enemy. So I'm going to have her do that. Or she does not, sorry. So yeah, she needs to move to that position. And I'm going to put her into ambush mode. And ambush mode basically means if an enemy gets too close, she'll hit it. Then we have our medic. Now, if I demonstrate, she has a free aim ability. The range on her shotgun's quite short, but that free aim ability can be quite useful if there's enemies clustered together who you want to hit. But I'm also going to put her into ambush mode. We once again have our guy here, and this is switched fire mode, so it'll cost me more AP, but I can fire off 2 bullets at one go for a slightly reduced hit chance. So 62%. Each shot has 62%, and they're tracked separately. So the first one killed it, which is fine. And as you can see, it used up more ammo, which can be an issue because obviously ammo is reasonably scarce in this game. If you're reasonably intelligent about the way you design your party, there's a reason why everybody in this party uses different weapon types. You should be alright for ammo, unless you're playing on the harder difficulties, then you're going to have to be careful. So again, this guy comes in, and he gets close enough to both of them for them to both use their ambush skill. It basically operates like Overwatch in something like XCOM, for example. And really, that's kind of it for the combat. You can spice it up with a few different things, depending on how you've got your party spec'd and various other things. And there are certain skills that can change it. So, for example, my assault rifle guy here, if one of those had actually managed to close to melee range, he would have got a severe penalty to his accuracy, because obviously his weapon's designed for medium to long range. So having an enemy right up in his face degrades his accuracy, but you can get a perk that counteracts that. So there is a reasonable amount of depth and complexity to it, and that's kind of it for the gameplay of Wasteland 2. The combat is good for the most part, although it does have its frustrations. Certain weapon types in particular are basically worthless, while others are rather overpowered. But I honestly can't say that it massively causes problems. There is also the issue that, well, quite frankly, the game is extremely unforgiving. especially if you don't do most of the side quests, and therefore you end up under-leveled, especially later in the game, and as a result the enemy's evasion stats go up, and frankly you can't hit them worth a damn even when they're 3 feet in front of your face. That can be rather annoying, especially if you're like me and you like to focus on the main quest rather than playing every single side quest. It's also worth noting that this game does have an awful lot of puzzles, and a lot of them have solutions that are very bizarre and left field and not immediately obvious. None of these problems are deal breakers, I want to absolutely clarify that, but they may affect your enjoyment of the game. It's also worth noting that this game does have a world navigation system in the form of a world map. This is the map screen of Wasteland 2, and this is after we've unlocked pretty much all of this map. Areas you haven't been are covered by your classic fog of war, so never been down here for example. So I'll actually go over there to demonstrate what happens. So you'll notice we have this indicator over here, which is how much water we have. Water can be refilled at certain points on the map, so there's an oasis over here. And sometimes you can do it in certain specific locations. There is a water fountain near the entrance to the Ranger Citadel, for example. So we could just poodle around here and walk wherever we want. If we wanted, we could also show the world map, which shows a list of the various places we've either been, or we have been given knowledge of their location. So for example, this radio tower is one of your early objectives, and that gets marked on your map before you even leave. So your first journey in this game will most likely be Ranger Citadel to Radio Tower. And if I wanted, I could click on a specific location and immediately order travelling to them. Now, when you're moving around, it is entirely likely that you will encounter combat sections, such as these. You can attempt to run, and that's based on your outdoorsman skill, or you can just fight it. And now I'm going to end up just fighting this because I don't have terribly much choice. But as I was about to say, that's really kind of all there is for the overarching map. Basically, you just move between locations, manage your water supply, and occasionally you might run into a random encounter like this and end up having to kill something. If I'm honest, this map mode isn't terribly interesting to me. I think personally I'd just preferred a straight destination choice. But it doesn't detract in any way that I can really mention, and some people will probably enjoy scouring every inch of it to try and find the odd hidden secret. Overall though, I think I can safely say that the gameplay of Wasteland 2 is exactly what it wanted to be. It's a throwback to the CRPGs of the old days, and frankly it's a damn fine example of it. Overall, I think I can say they did a pretty damn good job with the gameplay. The story takes place following a nuclear war, and is set in the remains of the United States, because nobody ever sets one of these games in Switzerland for some reason. It follows a group of 4 desert rangers, part of an organisation who aim to keep order in the wasteland, and fail at their job consistently. Seriously, I have not seen a law organisation this bad since Saints Row 3. Well, to be fair to them, there does only appear to be about 20 of them who ever actually go out into the field. Well, that could be part of the problem, yeah. Your group of 4 completely bland and personality-free rangers are given the task of investigating the death of one of your fellows and completing his mission to install a bunch of taps on radio towers in order to locate a mysterious signal that... Yeah, you know what, guys? The main story of this game really isn't terribly good. And what exactly is wrong with it? I don't know, the main quest just lacks something. The bits of this game's story that I do actually like are the much smaller things. The little quests in the places you visit, like the agricultural centre that's overrun by mutated plants and pod people. Because radiation, presumably. I think the stuff I like there is the fact that you actually encounter characters who do interact and talk to each other. Unlike your main 4. Since you are clearly waiting for me to ask, what exactly is wrong with your main party? I am glad you asked. They're boring.
because you create every single one of them, they have no personalities of any kind, and all the available dialogue options will either simply advance the quest by answering a question or by asking one, usually the latter. And frankly, they've just got no personality of any kind whatsoever. It's exactly the same issue I have with all silent protagonists, except this time it's taken to a factor of 4, which is just really, really awful. But by giving you the ability to create more than half your total party initially, was that not somewhat inevitable? It was, and I honestly can't see an easy way around it. I think the main problem is that I personally really like character-driven stories. I like to get to know characters and really feel for them. And in this game, I just can't, because they have no personality beyond what you personally project onto them, which I find it very difficult to do. As such, I can honestly say I understand why people like this game's writing. It does have some very funny moments, it's got some very dark humour in as well, and there is a lot of very quirky and witty dialogue, but because none of it ever comes from your gormless protagonists, it's just not terribly interesting to play as them. I end up wishing I was playing as one of the much more interesting other characters. As such, I think I can safely say I understand why people like this game's story and its writing, but it's just not for me. Graphically speaking, Wasteland 2 actually holds up reasonably well. It should be noted that the version I've been playing is the director's cut, which improved the graphics and also added in a few bits and pieces, just so you're aware of that. And honestly, the graphics are fine. It's not exactly a graphical powerhouse, but it does exactly what it needs to do. Although it should be noted that there are a few minor graphical glitches here and there, and the camera can sometimes be an absolute pain in the neck. Although, for the record, it does manage to keep a pretty consistent frame rate throughout. Overall, the graphics are pretty good, but nothing really exceptional. The art design, for the most part, is fine. I like a lot of the creature designs, especially some of the robots you encounter later in the game, but the character designs on your rangers are rather uninspired and in fact a little boring. I would have liked an awful lot more customization on their pure design front, as well as being able to mess with their stats as much as I can. It just feels odd that everybody has the same build, even if they're meant to have strength 10 as opposed to strength 1. In the same vein, a lot of the backgrounds are merely functional, but let's face it, that's probably an aspect of the setting. If you're going to set your game in the desert, you're going to be running around an awful lot of scrubland. Overall, the art design for this game is fine, but nothing really more than that. The music is pretty good for the most part. It has a few tracks that I really do like, and for once it also means that I'm using a completely appropriate Miracle of Sound song in the end credits of this video. As for the sound effects, they're also pretty good. The guns have a decent amount of punch, and I'll be honest, I have a particular fondness for the man melted by laser sound effect, because it's got just that right level of absolutely disgusting about it. The voice acting, it's far from the worst I've ever heard, but a lot of it is a little bit flat. And it also does that annoying thing where it alternates between voiced and not voiced, which personally I can't stand. I'd rather have all or nothing. Overall, though, the audio is pretty good for the most part. So, did I enjoy Wasteland 2 Director's Cut? Not as much as I would have liked to. Should you buy it? This is actually a difficult one for me, because if I'm honest, all of the main problems I have with this game stem from what it is. It's a very faithful recreation of old CRPGs, and personally I'd have liked them to tweak a few more things and take a few more risks. But, given that it was created by backers who really, really wanted an old school CRPG with all the trappings, that probably simply means that I'm just not who this game was made for. And you know what? That's fine. If you are looking for an old school CRPG, Wasteland 2 is a damn fine example of the genre. It's just not a genre that I think particularly appeals to me. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have somewhere that I need to be. I will see you later.